go ahead and get you something to Okay, welcome everybody to our SHAC meeting for this week. If you haven't gotten something to eat, go ahead and get you, feel free to get you something to eat. So, we have a quorum. We have most everybody here. I do know that Coach Frost and Susie Bailey are not going to be able to make it. They've already contacted me. And Mr. Bradshaw is at a meeting that may or may not pop in. Did he just... Alright, so be with us in just a second. So first things first, if you look at the back side of your agenda, that's our minutes from the last meeting. And after you look over those, if I can get a motion and a second to accept those.
A motion to accept them.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There we go. Okay, so we have a couple of people that are going to have to step out for a meeting. So Ms. Howell asked to go first, so we're going to change up our order just a little bit. So Ms. Howell, will you tell us about the BASE program?
Okay, so the BASE program is equivalent kind of to what DARE used to be. Some of you may know what DARE was, but it's with our 5th graders only. It started last Thursday, and it's 7 consecutive Thursdays. And what BASE is, it stands for Basic Awareness Safety Education. And so last Thursday they talked about drug awareness. It was kind of an overview. This coming Thursday, tomorrow, they're going to do the drunk goggles experience and field exercise. And we have an officer also who comes in and he's the one who does the class with the students. The 3rd week is school violence and firearm safety. The 4th week is internet safety. The 5th week is fire safety. And then the 6th week is 911 communications. And then the 7th and last week is outdoor safety. So, and then they have, after the last one, they will have a BASE graduation that they do with the 5th graders. And they'll get like a little certificate. And I think they have like a pizza party and stuff like that.
Did they seem to enjoy it?
Yes, they did. It seemed to go, go well. All the 5th graders are all in one room because they did it in the classroom last week, but this week with the drunk goggles, they're going to be in the gyms. They'll kind of be a little more spread out, but yeah, they seem to enjoy it, ask questions and things like that, so that's good.
It might be fun to get some video of the goggles.
Yes, very true.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. Okay, and a nurse update. So, Kara, can you tell us what's going on at the elementary?
So I don't have a lot of updates. Some things coming up for us. We have the immunization clinic in April, and we're starting to look at the SHAC records for that to prepare. Some things we're seeing on the elementary side, a lot of colds, congestion, cough, and we are starting to get a lot of strep coming back into our side. And that's really all I have for my side, but the one thing I know Miss Nisi informed y'all at our last meeting about the Biggest Loser, and I just wanted everyone to know here that the elementary side has won 5 out of the 6 weeks that
we have evidently not sabotaged enough.
No.
Actually, last week, Karen and I, when we were looking at the numbers, we add up every week and we send out notifications each week of the top 5 losers. And I was worried that we might not have 5 losers because several of us gained after the winter break. So we were actually, I thought as a whole that we might have gained weight instead of lost. But we didn't, we lost. But I was worried. We all thoroughly enjoyed our winter break. And now it's time to get back on track.
If you work at the elementary, have plenty of Subway. Have another
And if you work at the high school side,
No
lose the bread.
cookies.
No cookies. Okay, for the nurse update for the secondary side, pretty much the same. I've seen some stomach virus stuff going around, some complaints of sore throat, but we know that it's allergy season. Everything's fixing to turn that weird yellow-green haze, so we're going to see lots of itchy, scratchy throats in the coming months. And we did have our hands-only CPR training in February. February is Heart Month, and so we had that training in February. So everybody from the 7th grade up has had hands-only CPR training. So it teaches them that the most important thing is compressions, call 911 and get somebody there, but keep doing compressions. There's a few kids that we missed because they were absent that day. But this is something that they have to have before they graduate high school. And so we try to start in the 7th grade and go up. So we did have that training in February. And another thing that we did in February for our staff was a 60-mile challenge. So it was bike, ride, crawl, or jog, I think, is for 60 miles. And they were keeping track of who all reached that. And unfortunately, I did not get a list to look at that to see who all made that goal. But we had several teachers participate in that challenge. Okay, next on our agenda is the counselor update.
All right, so we've had a busy couple of months. We had in February, I'll let the girls kind of, Jamie and Jay can talk about this in just a second, but in February we had World Cancer Day, and with Student Council, cancer was the theme of the year for District 19. And so what we did, World Cancer Day actually fell on a Saturday, so we put out flyers and we had different colors, and we actually asked, we made announcements, Jaden actually made announcements, and said if there's a particular color for a type of cancer that you want us to raise awareness about and to honor, then let us know. And so we also sent that to the elementary, and Ms. Hutchins got with elementary teachers and everything, and so we compiled us a list of 5 colors. And so we did that, and they made announcements to bring awareness to the different kinds of cancers and stuff. So we did that for our Cancer Awareness Week surrounding World Cancer Day. We also had our seniors, it's now a requirement, started this year. They completed their peace officer training with Chief Rochelle. He conducted that training as well and he could probably tell you a little bit more about this in a little bit, but just to show them the do's and don'ts of if you get pulled over, if your interaction with a police officer, what you do and what you don't do. And so our seniors completed that. We had almost every single one of them. We had a couple that were absent that day, out for various activities, and finish up those, but that's a requirement now for all students. So he does it within his class. So we have a lot of the students have already gone through the training, but we go ahead and we do that again with all of our seniors, so that way they all can go through that training. In April, we actually will have, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so we will have our Go Blue Day on Friday, April the 7th. We'll also, throughout the month, we will make announcements on the middle school and high school side of just keeping our kids safe, and talking about that with them. And then Ms. Hudgens and I, last year, and we've talked about a little bit, we met with every single elementary class, and we talked about appropriate and inappropriate touch, and we had some little interactive games that they would play, and we had a book that we would read to them just to talk to them about it, and it's really just for educational purposes. We don't get into too much detail, anything that a parent wouldn't want us to. We completely respect those lines. We just educate. That's what we do, and just to help our kids to understand that. And then I'll really turn it over to the girls, because here in February, on the 22nd, we've been really working on leadership this year with middle school and high school. We just started the middle school student council, and high school has, and our NHS has been doing a lot of this as well. They've been working with those students, and they've been working throughout with the younger students in the council, and we were awarded the sweepstakes award, which is the highest award you can get. We're the only 2A school district that received that. You have to do a lot of work, you have to do a lot of activities, a lot of education.
Good job.
These two girls are a lot of that, so I want to let them tell you kind of about our spring forum and what they did, because a lot of what we do, like Go Blue Day, I have them help me, because that way it's not just coming from one person, it's coming from their peers, and it's a lot of people working together to educate, to get that information out there, because I promise you, they listen to each other a lot more than they listen to us sometimes. So I'm gonna let the girls go ahead and kind of talk about some of the leadership things that they've done, and then about Spring Forum and receiving that leadership award.
So there's 4 main groups in the student council, like, what's it called,
Yes.
4 main groups, and me and Jane are actually both the head of one of those groups. And we kind of worked really hard and put together these like booklet things of every single activity we have done, every single dress up day, everything that we post on Facebook. We have to make a book about all that. And we worked on that for like 2 weeks straight, just putting together this book. And then we took it to the spring forum, and we did get sweepstakes council, and there was 3rd year in a row, and we
They've been on it for 3 years, so they 3 years in a row with these two
worked
girls.
hard. We just got together with all the other city councils and talked about other activities we could do to help next year do more and be another sweepstakes council. So.
Johnny just hits dingers.
Yeah, that's right. This is that Grand Slam queen over here.
All right, girls, that's great. Are y'all training up ones below you to come behind you to keep this going? Are you training up some of the sophomores and juniors behind you to kind of?
Work in progress.
Now you understand our struggle sometimes.
They get it as seniors, they're like, we get it. But I was gonna let JD kind of tell about NHS, some of the things they've been doing. I know they're kind of finishing up their year with their hours and stuff. And, they're looking at doing some different, possible things to finish up the year with, maybe even giving a scholarship and stuff. So JD, if you want to tell them about what you guys have been doing.
So the scholarship, we're trying to figure out a fundraiser. You know, we actually had a meeting right before this for some ideas that we could do, like especially to include like our little kids and stuff and get them involved to help out with giving one of our seniors a scholarship. These girls know that it's not cheap to go to college, so just a little, you know, a little goes a long way. We've done numerous trash pickups over the years. We've done our community service hours. I know a lot comes with Pee-wee, with the Pee-wee games and stuff, being involved and hanging out with little guys, and then that's pretty much it.
And so National Honor Society, that's what that is. It's not just grades, it's also service. So that's what she's talking about, is the service portion. So these students have to, because they're all 3 in it, they have to maintain their grades, but they also have to complete service, volunteer hours, and projects. And it's something that we really push, so they can be admitted into the program sophomore year, and then they have to maintain their eligibility with their grades and with their service and stuff. So something we really try to push, because many think
Looks really good on you.
it does. We had several that went into the council this year, a big council, to do really good things as well.
Thanks. Thank you, girls. Okay, the next thing is the wellness policy. So, wellness policy and plan. So a little background on this. Some of you that have been on the SHAC for several years have heard about this in the past. So the state requires that we have a wellness policy and then a plan to implement. And these are different things that we have in place to educate and for nutrition and health and those sorts of things. So our plan has to be reviewed and updated. So that's part of what we're going to do today. So you've got a copy of the updated plan. I've spoken with Mr. Bradshaw and spoke to Amanda Sanders and Miss Debbie with food nutrition. So these are things that our previous plan, the way things were worded and the way we did things got changed a bit because of COVID. And so there's a few updates that we needed to make on this because of COVID. And also there were like websites that needed to be updated that were defunct and out of order. And so it's just us going over and updating and doing this. Our cafeteria, this is a requirement in order for us to feed our students in the cafeteria that we have this. And it's also a requirement that we have this plan and that we review it, and then we have to grade ourselves on how well we do at this as well. So first off, let's just kind of go through the plan. I will highlight some of the changes on page 2. You'll see the highlights there. That's just a website update. On that, the wording has stayed the same. It's just that's a website update. On page 3, the foods and beverages sold. So anything that we sell, whether it be in the cafeteria or snack-wise or anything like that, has to meet a certain nutritional standard. And so these websites here list what those standards are. We do have some exceptions to that, and the exceptions are fundraisers. And if you'll switch over on page 4, we're allowed 6 fundraisers per campus a year that sell things that don't meet that smart snack. So for example, the band right now is selling the bundt cakes. Not good for Biggest Loser, but they'll be delivered when it's over. So we're good. But that gives us the ability to still be able to do that kind of stuff, or the suckers, or anything like that. There are some schools that have no exception to that. I think that's a little harsh, not to give kids a little something. So we decided to go ahead and have in our plan that we can have some exceptions. So if anybody has any comments or ideas about that, we can discuss it. One thing that I did add here, we have that anytime foods are provided, that they have to check with the nurses for food allergies to make sure that we're not serving anything that will hinder with food allergies. But we also, I put in here that sometimes during celebrations there may be snacks there that don't meet. Because sometimes we celebrate, we have popcorn days if we've done something well, or pizza days if we've done something well. So these are exceptions that we've put in just so that the police can't come and get us for celebrating. Not Officer Rochelle police, but the food police. Okay, so the next part here on page 5, these are the different goals. And the goals that are here are goals that were established in 2017. So none of the goals have changed. Some of the objectives to meet those goals have been tweaked a bit, but the goals are still the same. So we haven't made any changes there. The changes that have been made, let me see. All of this is the same as what it was. Going through, I think it's the physical activity on page 11. For the physical activity, so we have to have a certain amount of physical activity in elementary and middle and high school. And Ms. Harrell can help me a little more with the requirements specifically, but what we have in here is that we'll have 30 minutes per day of physical activity for students that are required to have them. In elementary, they get it daily. So they get This is structured and unstructured, so recess helps with this and goes with this for elementary, because they have more than 30 minutes a day when you add the recess in for our elementary students. We feel that it's very important that they get some energy out. For the middle school and high school, if you will look at the action steps there, it's provide a minimum of 30 minutes daily of physical activity for students not scheduled in competitive athletics in grades 9 through 12. And I added in there that 2 semesters of that is required. Because before we didn't make that distinction that only 2 semesters were required. And so I added that distinction. Band, marching season band counts as activity, and then PE counts as the physical activity. And then the physical activity, the 30 minutes a day for grades 7 through 12 that are in competitive sports, meaning the ones that are in athletics. So that's the requirements there. So that's the change there. I think that's all I have for changes. Oh, I did, and I don't think I highlighted it on the one with water.
Who's on page 8?
Which-
Page 8, I saw that.
Page 8. Okay, one of the obstacles that I added with the access to drinking water, because at our last meeting we talked about sometimes when we have bans in the city and that we bring in bottled water for those sorts of things. So I added in that that's one of the obstacles that we may encounter for providing water. It's something that we actively try to know beforehand and have the bottled water brought in. We've gone to the dollar store and bought bottled water before for our kids, and we always encourage them to bring it. But I did add that as an obstacle that I forgot to highlight on there. Does anybody have any questions as far as the updates on our wellness plan? Do I have a motion to accept this? Because we have to submit this to the school board. So do I have a motion that we submit it as presented to the school board? 1 and 2. Got it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, so the next part of this, now that we have our plan, we have to grade ourselves on how well we're doing. So that's just a small group of us that volunteered to meet to kind of go over. We ask things of principals like, how many fundraisers did you have? This, so that we can document those sorts of things to basically grade ourselves. So Amanda had to step out because she had another meeting, but she's already volunteered to sit on this committee. Adam, I think you've done it before. We've gone over this plan before. So do I have anybody that's willing to come up and kind of grade us as a school on the plan? Thanks, Tony. All right, so let's see. Adam?
Sure.
I'm just because you've done it before. You know.
Expert grader.
Anybody else? We good?
I'd be happy to if you need.
Okay, perfect, thanks. All right, so I think 5 should be good. So do I have a motion? Huh? Do y'all, we could have a student?
If you need one, I will.
Yeah,
We'll all 3 be there.
Okay, absolutely. Well,
I
we
think-
will
I think
take
it would
you
be
all
good
to get their
perspective.
perspective.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be great. Okay, so it would be me and Amanda and Tony and Adam and Madison and Jaden, Janie, and Jaden. So do I have a motion to accept those names?
I make a motion.
Kayla,
Second.
I'm gonna go with Joel as the second since you're on it, Adam.
That works.
And all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. Y'all made that so easy. That was good. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is Dr. Bradshaw and I have discussed, and Officer Rochelle and I, Chief Rochelle, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no, that's fine.
And I have discussed the possibility of a Narcan or naloxone stock on here, on campus for next school year. And if you don't know what that is, Narcan is a drug that it's a nasal spray that you squirt in the event of an opioid overdose. And we've heard in the news fentanyl is everywhere, and it is one of the drugs that Narcan can attempt to reverse the effects of. I do feel that it's important because we are so far away rurally, and it's going to take at least 15 minutes for an ambulance to get here. Our volunteer fire department does not have it. And so it's something that I feel is important. Last school year, or was it the school year before, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, we initiated and we now have stock epinephrine on campus for any undiagnosed anaphylactic reactions for the same reason. We are so far away from an ambulance getting here with epinephrine in the event that we need it. Knock on wood, praise the Lord, we have never had to use it, and that's my honest and sincere prayer that we never have to use it, and we just spend the money every year to buy new ones, and we never use it. I pray that that's the case. The same thing with the naloxone. So it's open for discussion. What do y'all think?
Yes.
I agree, yes.
Very much.
And I know Dr. Matt Young, y'all familiar with him in Texarkana, I know him very well. He said and there's no chance of any type of adverse effects if it's given like accidentally to somebody who's showing the symptoms but not overdosing. Worst thing that can happen is a runny nose. So, man,
It's not gonna hurt, but it's certainly
not gonna hurt
save
somebody because they
somebody's
get
life.
it. Very
Whether that
safe.
be a student, where we've had medical emergencies, when we've had open house or grandparents' day, or any ball fields or somebody show up, we'd much rather have that opportunity to try to save someone's life. There are some steps that we have to go through. There's a lot, for the school district, there's a lot of hurdles, but we do feel like it's something important if we want to move forward with it.
So
We
will it be
appreciate y'all's
something at
support.
off-campus events like the football field or?
That'll be things that we do discuss. What we do with what we've discussed, it would be similar to what we do with our EpiPens, which is on campus grounds. So certainly on campus when students or people are present. And then what we currently do is when we have football games or major events down at the field house, we carry that. Either our coaches or our nurses take that down just in case, particularly whether it's our kids or you think of a football game when there's 1,000 people there and it's another community that's come in, that we have that opportunity. And you know, that's happened when we first started having this conversation. Was over the we've seen other school districts with Narcan certainly have adverse effect, and some of it is intentional, some of it's unintentional. You know, the individual has no idea that that stuff's there. But we would certainly develop a policy that would you know, somewhat control that, and then we're going to assume anyone that has to give that will go just like the epinephrine will have to go through some very specific training on what we can and can't do. So we have a team that can give those EpiPens here that have all been trained, and we do something very similar to that.
Yeah, and the EpiPen training, it has for, we have generalized training, medication training for students that are assigned EpiPen so that the teachers, if they take them, that they have the ability, they can do that. But the stock epinephrine is learning to recognize for somebody that you don't already know that they have the allergy. So it's a specific training, and they have to go through this yearly to be able to be the one to administer it. Obviously, it's Kara and I, the administrators, and then the principals choose different people that are going to be here. Officer Rochelle's one that are going to be here whenever people are here on campus. So with the stock epinephrine, it's kept in the gym unless we have games going on. Yeah, Nurse Kara remembers we had an incident where I'm gonna tell them.
We're just trying to protect people.
On a Monday morning, I show up in my building and the epinephrine's gone, so I go on a mission wanting to know, I'm thinking a kid stole this epinephrine and I'm trying to find it, so. I had Mr. Mark looking at cameras and I found out that it was.
We had our first home football game and one of our coaches stopped me and said, hey, we didn't get the EpiPens, will you go to the gym? Absolutely. And so I go there and they're not there. So I'm running around trying to find them. I can't find them. Fine. So I just went to the next place I knew where it was, and I told them, I said, look, this has to be back in that building by Monday, or DC's going to get me. And I was promised they would do that, and they did not.
And the EpiPens weren't in the gym because Tara had already gotten them. She had them.
Good time. We were double protected that day.
So we will make sure that stuff is where it needs to be, but that's one of the things with the Narcan policy that we'll talk about, and my gut feeling is that it's going to be very similar to the epinephrine that we have that available. So do I have a consensus that that's something that we want to recommend to the school board that we do? Okay. And the next thing I forgot to put on here, the safety and security updates. So we are in open discussion, so
Awesome.
we will.
Openly discuss. I think, since our last meeting and that, we've certainly completed, I know we talked about previously, kind of this exterior fence. We've added the, what they're calling anti-scaling device, but it's 3 strands of barbed wire on top of that to make it harder to get across. So that's across the whole outside of that. And then we put that with our front fence and gates, and we'll meet the TEA guidelines for a secure campus. We've added access buttons behind both the middle school and the high school, so you don't have to walk around the fence anymore or come out to the front. Y'all just stay back there in the back. So we certainly have been able to add that. And then we are adding anti-resistant filming to most of our glass doors or anywhere that somebody, make it much more difficult. Somebody want to try to bust in or break through one of those. So those have been, we started that process as well. Outside of that, every other recommendation that we had at the beginning of the year has been implemented, and we feel very good about where we are. We'll have a full safety audit every 3 years, and this is our 3rd year, so sometime this spring, we'll again have somebody try to access campus, access doors, and then they'll walk the campus and give us feedback on how we're doing comparatively to that. We did get back our safety plan. We submitted to the Texas State School Safety Center. They did a full review of our active shooter, active threat, and our general plan, and we passed all of those. And there was some feedback and some verbiage, really not anything in the processes, but just please include that, please include that. But we resubmitted that and got a clean bill, so we feel pretty good about where we're at on those. Any questions on current safety?
Rip down all our drills.
Good.
Won't run on those.
So that's been going real. Chief Rochelle keeps us straight on those. We do weekly door checks, so he walks through every exterior door and interior door, and we test those. When we find one that doesn't work, we found one here recently, then that's an emergency repair, and we get that fixed as soon as possible. But he tests all our classroom doors while they're in session. We do ask all of those be locked. And I think the kids have reported multiple times people checking their doors as they're in class. That's kind of become a routine, so we try to continue to do those things.
So, can I ask parents, what are y'all's thoughts on all the new safety stuff?
We're making it like a prison. Our kids are in prison.
Well, look at it more like a fortress to keep people out.
I try to look at it that way.
The barbed wire is intense, but I understand the reason for it.
I've never noticed the barbed wire.
It's coming, right?
It's all out
Oh, it's
there.
already up there? Okay.
And where it's at is
backside.
it's on the backside of our campus, so you can't, it's not as near as visible where you drive by and see that, so.
I thought initially I was like, this is gonna look bad, but it looks really
It looks
like
great.
classy and nice. And Redwater's doing the same type of fencing and.
So the front iron gate certainly was a little more expensive, but our school board really wanted to, we really wanted to make sure, one, it's hard to get over. You can't get over, but two, it does look much better than if we put a bunch of chain link up. And we certainly, that was our biggest fear, was the prison aspect of this. We want our kids to feel, free and be that, and we try to make it where it still is open to our community, but at the same time, restrict that where people just can't, walk up. And our biggest fear, particularly, back here at the elementary at any time or really anywhere, was that somebody could just very quickly go anywhere they wanted to in the district before anybody ever really knew where they would be. So that was a long debate for us, but that's certainly been the fears, that we didn't want to create that as much as possible. It's become more and more of that, but TEA is releasing new stuff that we're going to have to do. This is going to give us a lot more flexibility from what we can. And we're certainly back there behind the school where you can't really see. It'll make it more difficult for anybody if they try to come through.
And going through the gate isn't that like inconvenient or anything during the day. It's fast. It's not like it holds you up very much. But my father-in-law did say after the book fair that he liked the signs warning about the guns. He was like, what sign I liked out there? I already knew what he was talking about. The guns. Yes. So that is a good deterrent for people.
Well, we like to have that out, and we certainly are going to continue with our training and do those things. So far, we have not had issues. There's been some other districts that have had a few things as far as in the news of people not. It's something that we've talked back to all of our guardians about, but there's been several school district employees that have left access to firearms.
I've read about
I think there was a
those.
superintendent here just very recently that left his in a restroom and a third grader found it. So, those were the fears, my personal fears of any of that, of bringing it in, is just now we have extra firearms and things that are in place, but we've certainly worked with our guardians to make sure that they are well trained and are not doing those things. We've provided ways that if for some reason they had to take that firearm off or put it, that we have ways that they could store it where it's not accessible. But a lot of that is just individuals that may not be used to always having firearms on them, and then just forget you're sitting in the middle of the school with 500 kids. And I get it. You use the restroom and you set it on a counter, but actually I don't get that. But if you do that, you better pick it up. But that's kind of what happened, I think, to the one that's been in the news the last few weeks. So we've continued to train and reiterate that with our staff, that that's the big no-no, that that's a
And you said it was a yearly, like, requalifier.
We will, yep. So we'll, anyone that is on that team will have to requalify over the summer. We did a full first level guardian training this past year. There will be additional levels of that you go in that are more advanced. So we'll continue to do that. Chief Rochelle is monitoring, our monthly practice. Anybody that's in part of that has to go, we try to make them go monthly, provide those supplies and provide a place for them to practice and then get reports on how they're doing. So certainly a learning experience for us, and we'll revisit that over the summer, but currently we feel good about where we're at with it.
So the fencing and stuff, am I understanding right that that's a requirement from TEA to do that, or we have to do like
So there are options. Having the fencing gives us a lot of flexibility the way that our campus is set up. One, we feel that it makes it, we were doing a lot of that before TEA released all their requirements, just because we wanted to make it where it was more difficult to get by in there. But yes, there are some, if we don't have that, then there's a bunch of other things that we would have to do to restrict movement between buildings or protect entryways or do some other things. So this certainly helps us in what we're doing. But certainly don't like the prison aspect, but do understand that.
Are the doors locked too, to the classrooms and the buildings?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. When kids are in the classrooms, they'll be locked, so they'll have to knock to get back in. But that's not too bad overall. Y'all got used to it?
Yeah.
Earlier they were griping.
In the beginning, maybe, but it's not even
It's very hard to not go and let Jaden in. I was like, I know Jaden, so it was weird. And he's like, no, sit down. You guys I'm just trying to help.
Working at a public university that does not have a restrictive safety, there's, it's open air, it's wide open. I'm very grateful that I can stress less about my kid, because I'm already worried about myself and my students. So.
And it's, a lot of that, it's a little, you give up some inconvenience and some of that, for that safety aspect. And that's something we've tried to talk to our staff and hopefully our kids about as well, is just, we're trading a little bit of convenience for these safety measures. And when you look at locked classroom doors, all the research will tell you that's the #1 preventative measure.
It's sad though that it's become a society where we have
Absolutely.
to do
It is absolutely sad that it is. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that we can get into why it's that way. And I won't do that here, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we can. And I know our school board, when we met and started doing these things well before TEA ever got around to releasing it, none of us ever wanted something to happen when we came back and thought, we should have done something else, or we should have spent more money here, or we should have done this. So we really tried to do everything we could think of at that moment and continue, because none of us would be able to live, if that was to happen. And we didn't take the steps that we felt was necessary, or, whether that be for convenience sake or for expense sake. So we really tried to put all that together. But I appreciate y'all and your patience, but it's kind of gotten used to it now. And our job is just to try to make sure, as we move further and further away from that tragedy, that we keep that in our mind. Because what happens over time is, for convenience sake, we'll stop being secure. And so we're really trying. Chief Rochelle really keeps us on our toes. That's one of his charges every week, is to make sure we're doing those things. So
Randomly too, and multiple times.
Do we have anything else for open discussion? Is there anything else that?
I just wanted to say thank you for incorporating more like mental and emotional health, like that session that, did you host that, Caleb?
Yes.
The session for parents, and I know you were there.
Yeah.
I
appreciate you guys
some of those strategies with my kiddo, because, blood sugars come with roller coaster emotions too, and so, I really, and then Claire's come home talking about some activities like filling up your bucket, like character lessons. Yes, and I really like how, just anecdotally, I feel like a lot of the faculty, especially like Mr. Barron, like if there's a kid that's struggling, they really go the extra mile to like make them feel valuable and appreciated. And I think that that's as much of a safety and preventative measure as the fence. So just people caring. It's really nice.
There was that bench put in, the friendship bench.
Yeah.
Is that only for one playground?
I think, yeah, they put it on the pre-K one, but I think there might be another one on
I was
the.
supposed to say, I think there's another one, Jenny, is there another one in the works?
There's-
Going to be another one
There
in the
can be.
works? She can do it.
That
She
is
can
nice.
actually,
For
yes.
the elementary, yes. I feel like my son maybe would do that, or some of his little friends, they would sit down, and if you see somebody sitting there, they need a little friend. Yeah, that's really awesome.
currently, I think we have one put on each.
I like that.
I think the pre-K one was the last one we hadn't had one. So actually, our elementary student council came up with that a few years ago.
I love
They
that.
came up with the idea and took it to Mr. Barron, and he helped make it a
Make it.
reality for them. And then I think we added that last one to that playground. And certainly, as we kind of move forward in open discussion about safety, one thing that we do have coming up, and we're looking at, is certainly our school board has called for a construction bond that we voted on in May. We certainly have a website out there. I'd encourage you to look at it. But part of that is parking and traffic control. If anybody this morning was here, we know that those are major issues. So what we're looking at, one of the big safety concerns that came out of we had a facility committee that we brought together. It was about 25 folks. We started meeting last February. So we met for about a year, and we really looked at the needs and what our district, the conditions of the facilities, and what we felt like were major concerns. And the committee really felt like our cafeteria, our band hall, our parking, and the road structure here were all major concerns. So this project would try to address all of those. What we would look at, and it's for our drive, rather than continue to drive like we do now through kids. Ever since I've been here, that's been a huge concern, and we changed the whole traffic pattern at some point, but we still drive through all those kids at different times. What this drive would do would be go back behind where our gym would be and come back out here next to this building on the other side of that elementary, and really keep all traffic out of the middle of our campus, out of the middle of those kids, and really open up that area where it'd be more like a junior college. Kids can just go back and forth. Now, when we have special events or we have events and need more parking, we certainly could use that, but we wouldn't have it on a daily basis. And then we would add some additional parking back here behind the elementary, on the other side of the elementary building. And we're looking at the possibility of even add a kind of a flow over back there by the gym. If anybody came to the Bowie Maud basketball game, we were parking in front of the admin to get to the high school gym. So we certainly know all of those are issues. Concerns with our cafeteria, of course, one is the size, and we're able to get everybody kind of in there. But what we really started kind of first looking at was restrooms. The restrooms, ladies, I came and talked to all of our high school students as part of this survey, and the number one complaint I got from our middle school and high school students were the restrooms in the cafeteria. But there are issues with them. One, they're behind the stage. They're certainly not ADA compliant. Our stage is not ADA compliant. And when we host events, one, we don't fit in it. And then when we have to use, hey, y'all can go across the way to use restrooms because we can't use those. So we looked at what it would take to add that. Our kitchen is out of space. And by the time we added restrooms and some kitchen space, we were spending the same amount of money to build a new one. And then the other functional issue we have is our band hall. Our band doesn't fit in the band hall when they're all in there together. A band hall should have 15-foot ceilings, and we've got 10 foot. So when they play, it just bounces back into them. So it's most of the time when they have to practice, they have to go outside, and then we don't have the storage facilities or the practice rooms or dressing facilities that most band halls do. So the committee looked at it. It is much cheaper to renovate our current cafeteria than it was to build a new band hall. So and they get way more space. So I think it was $500,000 cheaper to build renovate an 8,000 square foot band hall as it was to build a new 5,000 square foot one. So they get much more functional space. But that's kind of the project that's coming up. And we talk about safety. We are certainly trying to address our parking issues and the fact that we don't want to be driving buses and cars through those kids on a regular basis. We know that's not a good situation, but it is going to take time, effort, and money. Our school board is the bond issues at $6.5 million is what we're asking from the community, and the school district itself is going to put up $2 million to make this kind of happen. We have all that information on our website, and I'd certainly be happy to talk to anybody that has any questions about it. We're going to be hosting some town halls and trying to talk to the community about what the impacts of that would be. But certainly safety is part of why we put all that together. But since we had an open discussion on safety issues, I'll just throw that in there.
Where's the proposed new location for the new cafeteria?
Right here between the middle school and this open space. So if you look at our footprint, there's only one open space left on the current drive that would work for any building. So anytime anybody talks about it, well, we'll put it there. And that's just this drive. If we go back behind there, will now give us more space. The fourth priority the committee looked at was a high school. That at some point we know that our high school is getting older, starting to have issues with roofs and HVAC and foundation issues, and certainly something that we're going to have to address. And we looked at the possibility of trying to do it all at one time, but the cost of all of that together was more than what we felt like was responsible for us to do. So what we want to try to do is attack this first piece as a phase one, and then come back. We'll pay off a current bond and several loans that we have on other facilities around 2030. And our goal would be to look at building a high school at that point. That high school would go behind the technology building, and it would tie in with that current driveway, and then we could add additional parking back there for the gym, the high school, and any of those other events. So, but we can't really build the high school back there if you don't have the road, and there's so the committee really looked at all of those and came up with this as being their priorities.
Where is it on the website?
If you go to MaudISDSchoolBond.com, it's all up there.
School bond.
Yeah, I pulled that up.
So there's not a link on our school website?
There should be. If there's not, we'll make sure there is one.
I couldn't find it.
So it's MaudISDBond.com is where it goes to, and we'll certainly show you kind of what that map looks like. And if you come on here, you can see if you're a taxpayer, how it will affect your taxes if you approve it. We got all that kind of put in there together. Is that one
$10, right?
And talking about
$100,000 home is about a $10 increase. $200,000 home is about $29 a month.
I don't know if this made national news or it definitely didn't make local news, but San Marcos ISD had, talking about parking and driving through the kids, the students during the drop off and pick up. San Marcos ISD had an incident week before last, 2 weeks ago, where a 11-year-old was struck and was killed in the parking lot.
Oh, gosh.
So here's kind of what it would look like. That would be where the new cafeteria would go. And then the current cafeteria here, we renovate. This would be the new drive going down Olive Street that would come back. Now, this may change some depending on what that looks like, but it's going to go back there somewhere. It's just going to depend on what the school samples and everything come back. But we would drive around all of this part, and then we would be able to come back on this side of the elementary, and that would become more of our drop-off, pickup areas. We could have additional parking in these two areas. Now, with that, we certainly will have to kind of relocate some of our playground around as we do it. But that way, our students would still park in this area, but we won't have everybody driving, through everything and then coming back out. Now, if we have events in that cafeteria, we certainly have all of this parking. We can utilize these other areas, even as parking areas like we do similar, where hopefully we can get off the entire, when we had the, I think it was we had the other night, we had Valentine's Day parties. I mean, you could barely get a small car through some of this because everybody's parked. We just don't have the parking for that. But this would help free up some of that. We've got the ability to even have some parking here, maybe even some overload parking on this side of it for the gym at some point. Where we would look at for a high school building is going to be somewhere right back in here. And this high school at some point, once that happened, we would demolish it. But we would look at building it back here on this road, and then we could add a much larger parking lot area back here with it at some point. We're currently, if we tried to build a high school, there's really no way to get back to it. But this would kind of keep everybody from driving right through the middle of that, on a daily basis. And then we can certainly, just as we have the parking gate here, we can do something similar up here and make sure that everything still remains secure, that people can't just come in and out of that. But, the bond issue that we're asking for would actually address the parking, this renovation, and this cafeteria. And then the school district is going to pay to do this and that additional parking. So if it's passed, then we'd really go into what's called the design phase, and at that point, really start making the determination where everything would go, start taking soil samples. But that, of course, takes time, effort, and certainly money to do that. We want to make sure that the community would support it. All of this area that's kind of colored is what the school district currently owns. We actually have a little bit more of this up here, but that's kind of what property we currently own.
Would that road be enclosed, or would it be, you could drive on it throughout the day?
You could drive through it. Now we can enclose it with a gate similar to what we have now. Or what the other option is if we didn't put the gate and you just left it wide open, then we'd have to do some sort of restricted fencing across that whole road section of it. So those would be the two options we'd have to decide once we get to that. But it would be very similar, if we gated it, would be very similar to what we currently have, which wouldn't be very hard to do. That way you can do it.
You said that old high school building, y'all might demo it?
At some point, if we don't use it.
Is it not structurally, does it have issues structurally?
It does. It's starting to. The front, if you look up there where Coach Farley's class is, down by hers, that whole front side of that building is starting to sink. Certainly have roofs. So at some point, now you may be able to go back in there and renovate that. What we brought in a group, which is Texas Association of School Boards, and they did a facility study. Whether we build, whether we don't, they don't get anything out of it. So they have no incentive for it. They just come and look and say, here it is. It would cost us almost as much to go in there and try to renovate what we have as it would to build a brand new facility. And you're looking at a 60, it was built in the 60s, but that front foundation is starting to have issues. It was never intended to have air conditioning. All of our electrical capacity is kind of full. So we certainly know that is a priority. It does function currently. But when we came back as a committee, really had to kind of separate. We had 4 priorities. We can get 3 of them with this bond and be responsible, and then let us pay this down, and then we can come back to that next one, hopefully at a later date. Is what we're looking at trying to do. But we really feel like by putting in this road and all that, it gives us now options where we can tie in other facilities where you can see the current road that comes in here. This is the only space that fits. Without doing some others. So that's kind of our goal in the long range. At some point, many years down the road, if you have to build elementary buildings, classrooms, gym space, you can tie it all into that traffic pattern and still not be driving through the middle of the campus. It would be the goal. But anyway, that's going to be Voting will take place May 6th. Early voting will start April 24th. But certainly, if you go to this website, maudisdbond.com, and I'll make sure we link it, and we'll send it back on there. But it's got all of that on it, early voting times, and then the question that most people want to know is, how would that affect me? And there's several little places that we can go to. Our senior citizens, anyone over the age of 65, it would not affect at all. Their taxes are frozen at whatever year they turn 65, so that won't affect them. It goes through this. Here's a little chart you can look at that will give you some idea. Or, for all us techie folks, the new age one is just even easier. Let me get to all that. It's got a slider down here, and I can just pick my own value, whatever I want to click on, and it'll just kick over and give you whatever that idea is. Now, we've got this that goes up to $350,000. The other one gives you $500,000. If anybody asks you or has a question, I certainly can calculate it out specifically if it's between those. But that's an idea that you can always go to. So we'll be doing some more meetings like this. We're going to do our elementary faculty. We had one scheduled tomorrow, but of course we got incoming weather that's a concern for tomorrow night. So we're still trying to consider open house, what we may do with that. We've been watching that today, but certainly if we're going to have tornadic weather tomorrow, it's high probabilities, and we may have to postpone, but we were going to do something, have a meeting tomorrow night to discuss this with the community. We may move that if we have to. But anyway, while I had you here, I hope I didn't spend too much time on it. But certainly go here. There's plenty that'll be here, and that vote will be this spring in May.
And I couldn't find the link on our website, so
Okay.
we probably
Well, I
need to
will
look
get
at
that
that.
linked up if we don't have it.
I mean, it may be there, I'm just
Well, if you can't find it, probably know.
not tech savvy enough to find it. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is schedule our next meeting. So the school board meeting, next school board, what was March 16th? March 16th. So our wellness plan is going to go to the school board on March 16th. So we need to have the subcommittee meeting after that date, but before our next SHAC meeting. So my thought was maybe when we get back from spring break in April, I don't know.
Is our next board meeting as well?
April 20th before then? Okay.
Both of those in?
Get it before then. What about April the 12th is, we're on spring break. Yeah, no.
It would be the first week of April would be, or you'll have to do it.
So April 19th, do we have anything going on April 19th that we know that would hinder a SHAC meeting?
I know of.
Okay, so we will have the next SHAC meeting on April the 19th. For those in that subcommittee, Amanda, you're on it.
Appreciate you volunteering.
So it has to be after March 16th. Is there, for the ones on that committee, do you need after 5? Do we need to meet in the evening or afternoon? We got the girl, what?
For the grading?
Yes, for the grading.
For me.
Tony, what about you? Does it need to be after 5? It doesn't?
No, I can probably make it.
After 5, but before
Depends on what
softball.
day it is and if I have anything else scheduled, but I can probably make it.
Probably make it, okay.
You said it had to be after when?
Has to be after March 16th to make sure they approve the,
In the evenings, we have t-ball, coaching. And a
okay.
lot of the kids are playing in it.
So what a,
I know. It's fun.
During the
It's not
day?
even t-ball, it's baseball.
During lunchtime, would that be okay?
So is lunchtime good? Is 12:30 good? And I can feed? I can have us some food?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, food.
Bring out some burgers and she's gonna eat like.
No, because I'm gonna beat Kayla. I'm trying to beat Kayla. Okay, so what day is good for y'all? Because it has to be after March the 16th.
Wednesdays are good for me.
Wednesdays are good.
They're good for me.
Is March 29th okay?
What time?
12:30?
March 29th.
Yes.
Are we meeting in here again?
We can, unless there's something going on,
Okay.
we can probably in here, or the conference room maybe.
Y'all can use a meeting here, that's not a problem.
Okay.
It's a good little meeting room.
Okay, so March 29th, 12:30, this is for the grading committee, but our next SHAC meeting will be April the 19th at 12:30. And at that meeting, we will discuss the results of our grading meeting, and then anything that we want to recommend to the school board, like what we talked about today for the naloxone policy, having that on stock for next year is something I can already think about. But if there's anything else that we want to talk about or recommend to the school board, that would be the time that we would do it.
During the day's perfect, it's easier for the students anyways, they're coming to us.
Get y'all out of.
They like that. They like that.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, okay, second, Joe. Thank y'all very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
It's not doing it.
I said, you